Awesome. Thank you, Emily. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Saleem Bseeu. I'm a senior product manager at Microsoft, specifically in the Azure Network Security CXC team. And today I'll be presenting the Azure DDoS Protection or deep dive into Azure DDoS Protection. So I'll be sharing starting with the Azure DDoS Protection service, the features it has, how to configure it, where you can use it, the best cases, and so on. And then I would like also to share with you a DDoS protection feature that just came out and for Azure Application Gateway WAF that I think is a big change. It's a new feature that will also change how you can protect against DDoS attacks at layer 7. And I will share also more information about that. Then I will do a demo where I will show you how to enable Azure DDoS protection, on which SKU, some best practices. We will look also at alerts, metrics, and logging to help you set yourself up with Azure DDoS protection and protect all the resources you have from different types of DDoS attacks. Okay, so let's start with the Azure DDoS protection. This is the network SKU. So what is DDoS protection? It's a Azure native service that provides you with DDoS protection against layer 3 and layer 4 attacks. The service can be enabled on VNet based public IPs, which means like if you have like application gateways, Azure firewalls, any VNet based service that you will have public IPs attached to it. And having a public IP attached to it means that there is a risk as you're exposed to the public data and your resources behind that public IP address are vulnerable to DDoS attacks. And that's why we have the Azure DDoS protection. It provides global network protection, which means that once you enable the DDoS plan, you can enable it on any public IPs you have under the same tenant. So if you have public IPs or resources in the US, you have in Europe or in Australia, you can use the same plan to defend against layer 3 and layer 4 DDoS attacks. We have also the adaptive tuning, which means that when you enable the DDoS protection on public IPs, you don't really need to do any type of configuration to set like the thresholds or anything like this. All of this is done by the algorithm and the adaptive tuning, which is set based on different profiles for all of your public IPs differently, which means that each public IP address you have will have different thresholds based on the traffic that is going through it over time, and also the scaling that is happening on the resources where your public IP addresses are attached. And what I mean by this is, for example, if you have an Azure firewall, this Azure firewall has a few public IPs attached to it. The thresholds are based on the traffic that is going through these public IP addresses, and that can increase and decrease over time based on the profiling that it's doing, the adaptive tuning. Then we have, of course, also the attack analytics and metrics, which is a big part of DDoS protection, where you can use it, for example, creating alerts. You can integrate it into your DDoS response plans that you have based on these alerts and also the logging that we have. And you can also then monitor the metrics to see the thresholds, how they're increasing or decreasing. And you can also use the information, the attack analytics, to do then post-investigation after DDoS attack. Then we have the integration with different native services, for example, like Microsoft Defender for Cloud, where it will give you notification when there is a public IP address, let's say, without DDoS protection and it is vulnerable. Or you can integrate it with Microsoft Sentinel, where it will create incidents based on alerts and also the automations that we have set up for it. Then we have also the DDoS rapid response. So once you have the this DDoS network plan, you'll have access to the DDoS rapid response team, which is a dedicated team that can help you with support during DDoS attacks. They can help you with investigating like previous attacks and seeing where it can be improved. And also they can then manually change the thresholds if, for example, you need to increase them or decrease them for your specific environment where you have it enabled. And then we have the last but not least, the SLA guarantee and also the cost protection for the resources you have where the DDoS protection is enabled. And I'll speak also a bit more about that. Now, this, what I share with you, is the Azure DDoS network protection. This is the first SKU. We have two SKUs. The other one is the IP protection. The IP protection, when it comes to the mitigation capabilities, they are the same. So they both provide layer 3, layer 4 DDoS protection. They're both global, where you can enable them on any region where it's available. The main difference is the pricing structure, and then also some extra features like the cost protection and also access to the rapid response team, right? So in general, when you have, let's say, less than 10 public IPs where you want to enable DDoS protection, then it could make more sense to use the IP protection SKU, where it's $200 a month, while the plan is around $3,000 a month. However, if you have more than 10 public IPs, public IP addresses you want to protect, then it could make more sense to use the network plan, since from cost perspective, it's already cheaper. And then you have also some extra features on top of that. So without going into too much information here, the protection you get is more or less the same. The main difference here is the amount of, or the number of public IP addresses you want to protect, and the extra features you get with the network plan. And here you can see the main differences between the two SKUs. As I mentioned, when it comes to the features, they are very similar. The main difference is the access to the rapid response support team, the cost protection, and also the WAF discount, right? So the WAF discount is when you enable the DDoS protection plan on a specific VNet, all the application gateway WAF cost in that specific VNet is discounted at 100%. So if you have, let's say, two application gateway WAF SKUs, the WAF price or part of the cost that you have for these application gateways is discounted at 100%, and you'll be paying only for the standard application gateway SKU. Now let's go into more detail about the specific features that we have here. So the first one I mentioned is that you'll get the DDoS protection scale at global level, which means that we have the DDoS mitigations in more than 62 regions. The capacity is more than 90 terabits per second. You probably heard also of the latest attack that happened recently in Australia on a specific public IP address, where the source IPs, or the spoofed source IPs, was more than 500,000 different source IPs, which was a massive attack, and it was mitigated successfully without any downtime for the customer. And as you can see, that we do have usually more than 2,000 attacks mitigated daily. And also an important thing to mention is that DDoS protection is for both inbound and also outbound traffic or mitigation that we have, which means that also even if there is a attack happening from, let's say, hijacked bots inside your environment, where they start DDoS attack, that's also mitigated with the Azure DDoS protection. Now, when it comes to the adaptive tuning, I mentioned that every public IP address that you have DDoS protection enabled on will start creating profiles for each public IP address that you have. It will create 3 specific thresholds for every IP. The first one is the TCP, and then you have the TCP sync threshold, and the last one is UDP. Whenever or if any of these are exceeded, then the mitigation starts and the traffic is sent to our mitigation pipelines, where they're checked if it's legitimate traffic or it's malicious. The adaptive tuning is based on algorithm done on the traffic that is going through that IP. And it's also based on the scaling that is happening where the public IP address is attached. So for example, if you have like an application gateway, that application gateway scales out because the amount of legitimate traffic going through it is increasing over time. Then the same thing will happen also the threshold where it will also increase based on this increased traffic. But of course, if there's a sudden spike DDoS attack, let's say, then it could exceed the threshold, and then the mitigation starts. And when it comes to configuration, right, there is no specific configuration needed. All you need to do is enable the protection on your IPs, and then the adaptive tuning will automatically start and creating these profiles for each IP. And I'll show you also later in the demo how you can create these, how you can create the or enable the plan on your IPs. And this is how it looks like, right, when you have a DDoS mitigation. So as you can see, the inbound traffic starts here from the left. In the normal situation where the mitigation threshold is not exceeded, as you can see here in the example on the lower part, if it is not exceeded, then the traffic is just normally being forwarded to your public IP address, and then it goes to your workloads and your environment that you have. However, if it's exceeded, what happens is that all this traffic is rerouted to our mitigation pipelines, depending, of course, on the region where the traffic is coming from, and then it's checked against different DDoS attacks, also based on the threshold that is exceeded. And if that traffic is seen as malicious traffic, it's dropped, while the legitimate traffic is then forwarded to your public IP address. And this is happening when there is an active DDoS mitigation, which means that the threshold is exceeded and the mitigation is active. Now, when it comes to the attack analytics and metrics, and also show you in the demo where you can find them and how you can utilize them, we have metrics, a lot of different metrics for DDoS protection. You can see when, for example, it's under DDoS attack or not. You can also view the thresholds and also the traffic that is going through it, which traffic is dropped and which traffic is forwarded. We have also real-time logs, different categories that will show you a lot of useful information for during the attack and also for post-attack mitigation. And then, of course, you can also integrate or send these logs, for example, if you're using Splunk or some other solution for your organization, you can send these logs to that specific solution. And then you can also utilize these logs there for investigation, for creating alerts, and so on. And depending, I'll show you also later, depending on how much logs you want or how deep you want to look at the, let's say, the attacks, you can select which category you want to enable. All right, next we have the integrations. So we have the integration with Microsoft Defender for Cloud, which will show you recommendations for unprotected public IP addresses, where you can enable the DDoS protection. You have the alerts integration also like in a single dashboard, and also you can then use the regulation compliance recommendations that will help you with compliance when it comes to enabling the DDoS protection on and which IPs. And another thing also about attack analytics, this is very useful, especially when you have a big number of public IPs with DDoS protection enabled, is the workbook. This workbook, you can deploy it directly from our GitHub repository with just one click and start using it. And I'll also show you in a bit how you can use it and how some best practices on it. We do also have solutions for Microsoft Sentinel. So if you have Microsoft Sentinel, you can use these solutions for extra security. We have one solution that leverages the information we have from the DDoS attack. So once there is a DDoS attack, it will collect all the source IPs from the packets or from the sources where we've seen that malicious attack is coming from. Then these source IPs are automatically added to your firewall of choice. For example, if you're using Azure Firewall or you're using like Checkpoint, Palo Alto, it will add these source IPs from malicious users that we know about, and it will add them to a deny rule on this firewall, so that if they, let's say they start a different type of attack with these same source IPs, they will be blocked automatically. And this solution is also available for Azure WAF, so you can use these source IPs, or you can block these source IPs directly on the custom rules on the WAF, and it's done automatically, right? So this is an automation where you can directly just deploy it, and you will have this solution available in your environment, where it's using information from different solutions to increase the security in your organization. Then we have the DDoS integration with Network Security Hub. So you probably know about Azure Firewall Manager. It's been renamed to Network Security Hub, and you can use this hub to manage your VNets. You can directly there enable the DDoS protection on your VNets where it's not enabled. And you can also manage, for example, your WAF policies and also your Azure firewall policies from the same place. So all of your network security native solutions are on the same page where it's easier to manage and configure your solutions. Then we have the SLA guarantee and cost protection that I mentioned. So there's the 99.99% SLA guarantee for the DDoS protection service. We have also the same percentage for during the attack that the resource or the target resource will not be impacted. And then we have also the cost protection, right, which is 100% service credits for the resource cost. And this is what this means is that, let's say, an example, you have a Kubernetes instance that is running, and because of a DDoS attack, the instance scaled out, and then you had extra cost incurred because of that. If that happens as part of a documented DDoS attack, then you can get all of these extra cost back as service credits if you have DDoS protection enabled on that cost. So you have 100% cost protection. Then we have the access to the rapid response team. So this is a specialized support team that you will get access to when you have the network SKU enabled. And these support can help you with investigating DDoS attacks. They can also help you during DDoS mitigation if you need help with manually increasing the thresholds or some configuration changes that are needed because the let's say the attack is not mitigated at 100%. And then also you can reach out to them for like post-attack investigation, so on, to help you with anything that you need related to DDoS protection and DDoS attacks. When it comes also to DDoS protection, I'm sure that most organizations do DDoS attack simulations to test the durability and also the scalability of your environments. And if you want to test, for example, you have your environment, you have DDoS protection enabled, and you want to test how the mitigation, for example, work, and also some to generate some logs, then you can use one of the attack simulation partners that we have. Today we have 4 of them, so you can reach out to any one of them, and you can then start simulated DDoS attacks to test your environment and also document the results and changes. So when it comes to the pricing, I mentioned also earlier that the Azure DDoS network protection costs around $3,000 a month for the entire tenant, right? Which means that all the subscriptions and VNets you have in that specific tenant, you can enable DDoS protection on the public IPs that are there. And then for every one IP above the 100, there is a $30 a month extra. And you can see here that this pricing also includes the cost protection, the access to rapid response support, and also the WAF 100% discount. The other SKU, which I mentioned is, and it's the IP protection SKU, is $200 a month for each public IP address where you have it enabled. Again, right? So if you have a few public IP addresses and you don't want to pay the $3,000 a month plan for the network SKU, then you can use the IP protection and protect specifically the public IP addresses that you want. One important also thing to mention when you're thinking about Azure DDoS protection, I'm sure most of you have heard about the basic, or now it's called infrastructure level protection. So what's the difference between the DDoS infrastructure level protection and the Azure DDoS protection that I was just speaking about, and also knowing the difference between them? So the infrastructure level protection is there to protect the Azure resources themselves, and it's there to protect Azure infra or the platform itself, right? So if there is a, let's say, a huge DDoS attack that is trying to bring down Microsoft or Azure services, the infrastructure level protection is there to protect also customers' services and data from those type of attacks. But if there is, let's say, a targeted and smaller attack, and let's say if it's an attack of only like 400,000 packets per second, and let's say it's a TCP flood attack on a web service that you're running, for Azure, it's just normal traffic. It can be like, normal traffic going to a specific customer. However, for you, let's say this size of an attack can bring down the web server that you're running, or it can also incur you extra cost because of the scaling out. And that's where the Azure DDoS protection comes in. And it can help you because of the adaptive tuning and its understanding of the normal traffic patterns that you have and the scaling. It can help you with mitigating those type of DDoS attacks and protecting your workload, in this case, your web server from running down. Okay, so I mentioned the Azure DDoS protection and how it can help you against layer 3 and layer 4 DDoS attacks. What about layer 7? So usually when you're thinking about layer 7 DDoS mitigation, you'll go to the WAF, and recently we had the new feature which is called HTTP DDoS Ruleset on Application Gateway WAF version 2, which is now in public preview, and you can start using it. So this is a big feature, powerful one that came to Application Gateway WAF recently, and this is for HTTP DDoS flood attacks. You can enable this new rule set on the managed rule sets, and this is for layer 7, right? Protection. So it's you can start using it now if you have the preview portal, and this will protect you. It will against layer 7 DDoS attacks. And how it works is that it learns the normal traffic that goes through the application gateway that you have, where the WAF policy is attached. And then after a specific number of time, which is 24 hours, it will start either detecting or blocking these attacks. Now, how it works, and the first thing that you need to know about is the inspection order, which means that the HTTP DDoS rule set is evaluated before custom rules or managed rules that you have configured. So if you have, for example, a specific custom rule for rate limit or for specifically allowing some traffic or denying, then you should know that this new HTTP rule set is evaluated even before that custom rule, which means that if traffic is denied, then it will not go through the other rules that you have. Once you enable this new rule set, it will learn for 24 hours the traffic pattern, and then after that, it will start the mitigation or detection. The thresholds it sets, it will have two thresholds, one for the global gateway, so that's your application gateway, and then it will have one for each public IP threshold, and it will start once the global threshold is breached. Once you assign it, you can then set also different sensitivity levels. You'll have low, medium, high, depending on the needs that you have. When the threshold is exceeded, what happens is that it will add these IPs that are exceeding their baseline, and they're added to this penalty box where they're temporarily blocked, and after a certain amount of time, they're unblocked if they are under the specific threshold that they have. And if you want to view also more information about this, you can go to the link below that also we can share with you, and you can view this new feature on the application gateway WAF. When it comes to the new rule sets, there are two. The first one is 500-100, and it's anomaly detected on high rate of client requests. So this is for all the source IPs, right? It will look at all the source IPs, and then it will set the threshold for these source IPs. The second one, which is 501-100, is specifically for suspected bots sending a high rate of request, which means that we will use the Microsoft Threat Intelligence database to get the IPs of suspected bots, and these suspected bots will have more stricter thresholds that if they exceed these thresholds, they'll be blocked. So this is really useful because a lot of DDoS attacks are usually coming from bots, and you can have this rule where it will have a more strict baselines against these bots. And again, right, each rule can be then, you can have different action like log or block. This is at least available today. And then you can also configure the sensitivity for each rule. And the last thing I wanted to mention without going also into too much detail is the monitoring. So with this new feature, we will also have two new metrics. The first one is the WAF penalty box hits, and this will show you how many, like the number of hits that we get and how many IPs are added to the penalty box hits once they exceed the threshold. And then the second one is the box size, which is the number of IPs that are currently at the penalty box. So it will give you an idea of the different type of attack that is currently running and how many also source IPs are part or are seen as part of this attack. And then also we have the logs. So we have a new logs that will help you with understanding, for example, which IP was added to the penalty box and also the specific threshold it exceeded. Okay, so this is the new feature, and I'll also show you also in a bit how you can enable it on the application gateway WAF. But before doing that, let's go back to Azure DDoS Protection and start from there. So I'm going to start sharing here my portal page, and let's start with the Azure DDoS Protection. So this is my portal page. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and click on DDoS Protection Plans. This is where we have the network DDoS plans. And to create a DDoS plan, you just have to click on Create here. And then here you can select the specific resource group that you want, name, and the region that you want to create. And then you can simply create it. Once you have that done, then you will have the DDoS protection plan over here. And I'm going to click on the Alpine Ski one. And as you can see, this is our resource. So the important part that is most useful here is the protected resources under settings. And this is where I can add the VNets that I want to protect the IPs in. So you can see that I have currently 3 VNets here. If you wanted to add more VNets, so you want to add more IPs under this DDoS protection plan, you click on Add, and then you select here the specific VNet. So once you select it, the VNet, and you click on Add, what happens is that it will add it in a few seconds. And once it's added, that's all it's really needed to enable the DDoS protection, which means that the adaptive tuning starts. It will start looking at the traffic, and also it will start adding the profiles and setting the thresholds for each IP you have in that VNet, and you have DDoS protection enabled already. So the configuration, when it comes to configuration, it's pretty simple. And it doesn't matter if it's in different subscription or in a different VNet. Here you can see all the different type of resources that we have. And you can see, for example, under firewall, we are protecting one public IP address that's attached to an Azure firewall. And then here you can see, for example, that we have one attached to an application gateway. So it gives you a good view of which resources that you're protecting, and also making sure that all your resources that have public IPs, which means that they're exposed to the public, are protected properly. So this is how you enable it on the network SKU. Now, if you wanted to use the IP SKU, right? Basically, you'll have to go to the IP address resource. So let's say this is the public IP address that you want to enable the IP SKU, and you want to enable it just on this IP, right? So what you will do, you will go to the public IP resource, and down here on the right, you will have a protect IP address. You click on protect, and then over here, and let's ignore the protection status at least for now. You will have the protection type. So I'm going to click on here on IP, and then I will click on save. What happens is that it will enable the IP SKU on this public IP address, and that's all really it's needed to at least enable DDoS protection. It will start also the adaptive tuning and create the specific thresholds for this IP. And if you, for some reason, want to add only specific IPs to a DDoS plan, but you don't want to add all the IPs, what you can do is similar to this one. You click on the IP under the protection plan, and then you will click on the Add to Existing DDoS Protection Plans and select which one you want. In this case, I can select, for example, the DDoS Plan Alpine Ski House, and it will add just this IP to that DDoS plan without enabling it on all the IPs in this VNet. Okay, so this is how you enable it for both the IP and also for the network SKU plans. Now, once you have it enabled, you have the DDoS protection enabled, as I mentioned, which is great. However, when it comes to the alerting and, for example, logging, you still need to do an extra step. And to configure this, you'll go, as you can see here, to the public IP address where you want to enable it. And under monitoring, for example, you will go to, let's start with metrics. So when you go to metrics for an IP, select on metrics, the first one, and this is a very important one to keep in mind, is under DDoS attack or not. So this metric will help you with understanding when this public IP was under a DDoS attack or there was a DDoS mitigation happening on it. If it's 0, it means that there is no DDoS attack. If it's 1, it means that there was an active DDoS attack. The other metrics that are very also important to monitor are 3, and these are the thresholds that I mentioned also earlier that are created from the adaptive tuning. So the first one is the inbound sync packets to trigger DDoS mitigation. So let's click on this. And you can see that currently it's at 30,000 packets per second. And this can change depending on the amount of traffic that is going through this IP, and also based on the attached resource, if it's scaling out or scaling in, right? So if scaling out, for example, we can see that it will increase to 40 or 50,000 packets per second. So this is the sync packets threshold. The second one is the TCP packets threshold. So this is for all TCP traffic. You can see it's higher and it's at 100,000 packets per second. And the third one that you should also keep an eye on is the UDP packets, right? So this is the threshold, which is at 60,000 packets per second. You can see that this is demo environment. That's why probably also it doesn't change so much as we don't have so much traffic going through it. But once you have it enabled in production, you can sometimes see that this value will change because there's different types of traffic going through it, and also depending on when there's, for example, holidays or when there's expected more traffic, and this can always change based on that. So these are the metrics. And when it comes to metrics, there's nothing really you have to configure. You can just go here and view them. However, when it comes to logs, you will have to enable them. So to enable logging, as you can see, for example, for this public IP address, actually, I don't have any logging enabled. To enable it, you will click on Add Diagnostic Settings. And then here you'll give it a name. So let's just call it DDoS logs, for example. And you'll see that we have 3 categories here. So the first one is DDoS protection notifications. Then we have DDoS mitigation logs and DDoS mitigation reports. And I will talk a bit more about these categories while I show you how the logs look like, and also explain why sometimes you want to enable all of them, and sometimes you can also just enable, for example, 2 of them. Because the DDoS mitigation flow logs can generate a lot of traffic, and it can also incur more cost for you. Then you can also send your metrics if you want, and those are the ones that I showed you. So once you select the logs and the metrics, then on destination details, in our case, I'm going to send it to Log Analytic Workspace, and I'm just going to select here a specific one like this one. So once I have this configured, then I can just go and save this. Of course, I'm sending it to Log Analytic Workspace, but if you want, you can also select send it to, for example, Partner Solution. You can stream it to an Event Hub, or you can archive it to storage account also at the same time, right? So you'll have also information there. So once you have this, then you can just click on Save, and you will start sending these logs. So once I complete with diagnostic settings, I have all of this set up, and all of my logs are sent to, let's say, Log Analytic Workspace. Now let's have a look at the logs, right? And actually, before going to logs, something important to mention, right? I showed you earlier how DDoS protection looks like when there is an active DDoS mitigation or attack, and when there is no attack. This also means that the logs, these logs that I'm showing you, these are only generated when there is an active DDoS mitigation. which means that when you enable DDoS protection, you can expect that you will not see any logs because there was, let's say, no DDoS attack. However, when there is a DDoS attack, you will start seeing these logs, and then you can also investigate and have a look at the data that it's generating. So in my case, let's start with the first category that I showed you, right? So I'm using Azure Diagnostics table, and I'm looking only specifically for this category, which is DDoS protection notifications, and let's run it. So down here, we should start seeing some logs, and you will see 4 logs here. So the DDoS protection notifications will always generate specifically 2 logs for each DDoS attack. It will generate one when DDoS attack starts and one when DDoS attack stops. This is very useful logs because you can use these logs to create alerts based on them, and you can then use these alerts, for example, to send SMS, send email to your team, start an specific automation that you have in the DDoS response plan or anything like this. So this is really useful for when you want to integrate these logs and alerts to your DDoS response plan. So let's open one of these logs and see the details. For example, this is a log that is saying here mitigation started, and you can see here in the message saying mitigation started for this public IP address. So this is the IP address where the attack is being mitigated, and it will tell you also why the mitigation started. So you'll have all of this information, and once the DDoS attack stops, it will send you another log like this one saying mitigation stopped, for which public IP address, and that the inbound traffic, for example, is below threshold, so that's why the mitigation stopped. So this is the protection notifications. Now, the next one I want to show you is the DDoS mitigation flow logs, which I mentioned will generate a lot more traffic. The mitigation flow logs will generate a sampled version of all the traffic that is going through the mitigation pipelines. So as you can see, we have more than 1,000 results. You will see, depending on the amount of traffic going at that time through your IP, it will have different amount of logs. And let's open one of them. You will see that it will have a lot of information about that specific packet. For example, this one, the message is saying protocol violation invalid TCP sync, and which means that this one was dropped because it didn't pass the mitigation, and it was seen as a protocol violation because of a TCP sync. So this is probably part of a TCP sync attack. And you can see also here where this packet came from. So this is the source public source IP address for it, and also the source port and where it was going. So it will give you all of this information that is useful also for post investigation. And you will see also some packets here that are, for example, legitimate and they were passed. The last one I want to show you is the DDoS mitigation report. So let me run it. This is also a very important category where I definitely recommend to enable it. And also because the next part, which I will show you, which is the workbook, will use a lot of information from these logs. So this will create a report or DDoS mitigation report every 5 minutes during a DDoS attack. And then at the end of the DDoS mitigation, it will send a one post mitigation report. So let's see, for example, open this one, and you can see that this is a incremental type, which means that this is still during the attack. And you can see here, for example, information on the IP address, total packets, so you can see how many packets, how many were dropped, and so on, which protocols, and so on. So this is useful also during the attack. You want to monitor the attack, how many packets came, what were dropped, and what passed through. And then at the end of this mitigation, let's try to find the post mitigation report, which I think is this one. Yeah, so this one, as you can see, this is a post mitigation, and this will have all the information or aggregated information from this specific attack. So you can see it will have information like when the mitigation started, at what time it ended. You can see that this one was from 11:58 to 12:36. You can see also the IP address. It will have all the information here, like protocols, for example, drop reasons why it was dropped, which were the top source countries. You can see it's Canada and United States for this case. top ASNs, continents, and so on. So it will have a lot of useful information that you can use for investigation and also for creating a report then at the end about the specific attack. And this is the last category. Now, these are very useful. And we have also a few queries or KQL queries in our GitHub repository. So if you're curious, you're using Azure DDoS Protection, you want some more advanced ones, you can have a look there. We have different queries and also different artifacts for example, Azure policies and also detections. Now, just to show you an example of those, for example, I have here one that will show me the DDoS mitigation, like how long it was and which IP address. Let's run it actually, and you will see that we have one entry here. So it will tell me, for example, this query that we have, the attack was on this IP. The attack was for 38 minutes. And it will show me also the attack vectors, which was TCP sync flood and TCP flood, which is very useful for when I want just this specific information to report on. And you can, there's also another one, for example, this one, which will show like the traffic view. So you have an idea of like different attacks, the size of the attack, and also like how many packets we're going through. So again, right, you can utilize these queries if you want. They are available in the GitHub repository, and you can just copy and paste them into your KQL query. Okay, so these are the logs that I wanted to show you. Now, what I showed you also, if you have, let's say, tens or hundreds of public IP addresses, it doesn't really make sense to go, for example, here and just search for the category. It will show you too many logs, and it's really difficult to then investigate and also to create reports based on this information. So what you can do is you can use the workbook that we have, and I'm going to show you now how you can use it. So I'm going to search here for workbook. So we have the Azure workbooks over here, and we have a few here. I'm going to search for DDoS in this case. Okay, so we have 3 of them, and the one we care about is the one linked to CyberSock. So I'm going to open it here and then open the workbook. And again, right, this workbook, you can deploy it directly from the Microsoft documentation. We have it there, or you can deploy it also from the GitHub repo. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to select the workspace, right? So this is where it's going to use the data from. And I'm going to select CyberSock, where we're sending the logs. Then you can select the time range. I'm going to keep it last 90 days. And then the IPs that I want to view, right? In this case, I'm just going to leave it all, but it gives you the option to select a few of them. So you will see here that it will give you all the traffic overview. Of course, this is during the mitigations, as I mentioned. It will give you total packets, how many were dropped, how many were dropped for a specific protocol like here TCP, and so on. Down here, you can go and you can see all the attacks that happened in that specific timeline. If you want to go deeper into a specific attack, you can then click on it, and it will filter the page by that mitigation. Here on the right, you can see like which resources could have been affected by this attack. If you scroll down here, you can see the information about the protocols used, continent of origin, the countries where the attack came from, AS numbers, and drop reasons, right? So this is very important and useful information where you can, for example, use also this information to create like rules on your firewall. If you want to create like rules or rate limit blocking some specific countries because you're seeing more attacks coming from there, or specific ASNs. So this is very useful for post investigation, and then also for adjusting the security configuration. Down here, you'll see similar information on different format. And then down here, we have also the raw DDoS mitigation logs you can look at that I showed you earlier, and also the flow logs. So this is the first page. On the second one, we have all the metrics. Again, this is also very useful because here you can see all the metrics for the public IP addresses where you have DDoS enabled. And you can see, for example, here the average packet count for those IPs. Down here, you can see all the thresholds that I showed you earlier, but instead here you can see all the IPs, right? So you don't have to go each IP and then you have to look for that metric. It's easier to monitor them all in this workbook. And down here you can see also the under DDoS attack or not. So it will show you which IPs were under DDoS attack and also at what time. And the last page is the DDoS investigation. So DDoS investigation will show you information here like the allowed traffic during mitigation and also the traffic that was dropped. Down here you can see you have also a view of top attacking IPs, so you can know which IPs are more constant, like attacking your resources, and also the size of the attacks that are coming from these IPs. And down here, the last thing we have is like an investigation that you can do into the logs. So you can, for example, select this IP, this specific table, and then you can view the logs related to this table. So you can see, like, for example, logs from application gateway. If there was also some different attack, maybe can be found there based on this attack, and link this information, right? So this is, again, useful for then post-attack investigation. So this is the workbook. I hope you found this information useful. Again, I definitely recommend to use this workbook if you have Azure DDoS Protection. If you have Azure DDoS Protection, definitely also make sure that you have logging enabled, at least for the DDoS notification and mitigation flows, because a lot of times it happens that users are under attack. The attack is mitigated, but then they want to investigate and they don't have any or we don't have good information on where the attack came from or what exactly happened during the attack. So again, definitely recommend to enable the diagnostic settings on your IPs. One last thing before finishing here, this is the Azure DDoS Protection. However, since we're speaking about DDoS mitigations, I also wanted to show you the new rule set on the WAF. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna search for WAF. I'm gonna go to, so we have here two WAF. I'm gonna go to the application gateway WAF policy. And in the policy, under settings, there is manage rules. So when you click on that, you will see here all the enabled manage rules that you have. And you can see we have the 1.1 and also the 2.1 rule sets, one for the bot manager and one for DRS. So to enable the new rule sets that we have for HTTP DDoS mitigation, first thing you have to do, of course, is you have to use the preview portal page. So you need to make sure that you have the preview here before the portal, because this feature is in public preview. And then you will go and click on assign. On the assign here, you will see first the default rule set. So we are using DRS 2.1. Then you'll have the bot management rule sets. And then the third option that will show up is the HTTP DDoS rule set. So to enable it, simply you have to click on the rule set, which is 1.0. This is the first one released right now that is in preview. And then you just click on save. Once you do this, it will add it here, and then you can, for example, change the sensitivity of this rule set. You can enable or you can change the action to either detection only or also blocking. And of course, one important thing that I mentioned also, once you assign it, it will take minimum 24 hours to learn the pattern, and also then to be enabled, right? So you make sure to enable it in advance because it will need at least 24 hours before it will start adding, or it will be enabled and the thresholds are active. Okay, so this is the new HTTP rules rule sets. I hope you found this useful. I'm just going to go back here to the last slide here and share the screen. All right, thank you so much. Emily, any questions we want to address here?
Yes, one good one came through that says, how do you simulate a DDoS test?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good question. So just to be very clear, you can simulate a DDoS attack yourself on Azure, right? So that's not allowed. It's also not allowed in the agreement when you sign up for Azure. To simulate a DDoS attack, you'll have to reach out to one of the 4 simulation partners that we have. And the reason is because we have them signed up as partners. They have their environments where they start the attacks in Azure, and everything is regulated to make sure that no other services go down when they start attacks. Of course, no other customer services go down, right? So you have that option. If you want to do a simulated DDoS attack, you can reach out to one of them. We can also provide the link. We have in the public documentation link to all of these simulation partners. And of course, depending on the requirements you have for the test, for example, if you wanted like more of a managed service, very specific type of like layer 7 DDoS attack or anything like this, you will choose the simulation partner that has all of these features, and then decide which one is best for you and also for the organization needs that you have.
Great, thank you. Our next question says, can you please advise on how to enable DDoS for a single IP? As per Azure Calculator, a single IP costs $1,900 and a VNet $3,000 for 100 IPs. But when enabled on a single IP, I see the cost is higher than $199 a month.
So the IP SKU, right? When you enable it on one public IP, it will cost $199 every month, exactly, right? So it shouldn't be higher than that. That's the cost. That's the pricing that is today. And to enable it, as I also showed you earlier, basically you will have to go to your public IP address. So let's say here I'm going to go to all the public IP addresses I have. And I'm going to just select, for example, this one, right? Let's select this one. And this is the public IP address they have. What I will do, actually, let me go back. So this is, maybe let's use some other public IP address here. Let's use this one because it's standard SKU. And what you will do, you will find here protect IP address, click on protect. And the protection type will be usually by default on network. What you have to do is click on IP and then save it. Once you save it, that's how you enable the IP SKU on your public IP address, and the cost will be $199. It will not be more than that for each public IP address.
Perfect, thank you. Well, it looks like the rest of our questions got answered in the Q&A chat. So thank you so much, Saleem, for being our guest today and for sharing all of that great information with our community. Also, thank you to the Q&A team who helped us with answering all of those questions and providing the resourceful information. To all of the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desire to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community. Together, we can make a global impact. So join us at aka.ms/securitycommunity. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. For those of you who may have additional questions on the topic we just covered or any other product-related questions, please feel free to raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community Discussion Space at aka.ms/ANS-community. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.